The voice of sharing. Durian ASEAN.
Okay, hi everyone. You're with me, Gowri, this morning with Arlene. So, how are you doing, Arlene?
Well, I'm not feeling well. Yesterday we had a full day at the anti-GST rally.
Oh, right, we were there at the Dataran Merdeka.
And also KLCC.
And I think we got pretty wet in the rain.
Yeah, that's true. And I think there were about 50,000 people over there.
Oh, it was 50,000?
Yeah, it was reported in Malaysia, Kini, about 50,000. So there's a lot of, I think it's one of the biggest achievement in civil society history, because in that sense, even though there's no police restraining, and it was actually a very peaceful demonstration, but people were still there going to the anti-GST rally, and different rights groups that were there as well.
Yeah, and it was quite a new experience for me because I've never been to such a major rally before. The one in Penang was quite small, and we just gathered in the field, sitting down. So the one yesterday was actually quite fun. It was very new, and I saw how brave the Malaysians are getting, which is a good thing. You know, they know their rights and they are fighting for it.
Yeah, that's true. So we start off today, the first news, with the anti-GST rally, but when it comes to the Southeast Asian news, go ahead, Gowri.
Yeah, okay. I'll start with about Malaysia releasing the preliminary report into MH370. So it's been a while since we heard anything about the plane, and this is reported by the ABC News. So a couple of new information here, like the air traffic controllers did not realize that the flight was missing until 17 minutes after it disappeared from the civilian radar. According to the preliminary report on the plane's disappearance released last Tuesday by Malaysia government. In addition to that 5-page report dated 9 of April, the government also released other information like audio recordings of conversations between the cockpit and the air traffic control, and also the plane's cargo manifest and its seating plan.
I see. And it seems like it shows the Malaysian Airlines MH370. At one point, they thought the plane may have entered the Cambodian airspace. And the airline said that the report also stated that MH370 was able to exchange signal with the flights and the flying in Cambodian airspace. But the Cambodian authority said they had no information about the contact. So there's a lot of information coming in and out.
Yeah, so Hishamuddin also said that the Malaysia's military radar tracked the jet making a turn back in a westerly direction across the peninsular Malaysia after playing back radar data the next morning. That was nearly 7 hours after the plane vanished from the radar, and he said he immediately informed Najib about it within the next 2 hours, and they immediately started the search in the Straits of Malacca, as you can see here.
It's interesting because now it's everywhere that until now it couldn't be found.
Yeah, exactly, and people are so confused. Is it in Australia?
Is it in the South China Sea?
In the Indian Ocean? Yeah, exactly.
Is it in the Bay of Bengal? So there's a lot of different theories, different leads. Until now, I think it's like almost everywhere until it is finally being found.
And I think it must be really hard for the families, until now not knowing what happened to their loved ones on the plane.
That's true.
So let's move on to the second news. So this one is reported by the Straits Times, and it's about the rally yesterday. Thousands rally in Malaysia against planned GST.
And including two of us.
Yeah, I guess we were.
We were part of this planned anti-GST, right?
Yeah, so, as we know, thousands have gathered in downtown Kuala Lumpur to protest against the GST, which is the goods and services tax, which is to be introduced next year. The rally, known as the May 1 Anti-GST Rally, began at 2 p.m. on Thursday with some of the protesters walking from Kuala Lumpur City Centre Park all the way to Jalan Raja, which is the venue of the rally. So we did not actually follow the crowd to Dataran Merdeka, but we spent quite a substantial amount of time in both places, in
That's
KLCC and Dataran Merdeka.
In fact, there's a aerial view of the whole rally. It looks like red ants, like a lot of red ants walking through or moving forward in that particular stretch of Dataran Merdeka. Is very interesting.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
guess
a very, very amazing sort of aerial view.
Yeah, since you said it was 50,000 people, so I can imagine what that would look like.
And the Kluang Member of Parliament, Liu Chintong, said in a speech, he said that today marks a new beginning for Malaysia because we are not only protesting against unfair election, but against also unfair economic policies such as the GST. I think a few NGO and also political leaders were there giving speeches, including Anwar Ibrahim and Wan Aziza.
Yeah, and Mat Sabu as well.
Yeah. So there were a few people, very interesting personalities there.
And also there were a lot of other protesters there as well, right? They weren't just protesting the GST. There were people protesting liners. There were people going against the current minimum wage.
I think, that's true. When we were there, I saw a lot of rights groups, environmental groups, even youth groups, and interestingly, even marginalized groups like the Orang Asli, estate workers, and even the Orang Kampung were there. Like they came from as far as Terengganu, a kampung in Terengganu, just to be at the rally.
So what do you think of that? That it was supposed to be an anti-GST rally, but all these other NGOs were also using it as a platform to fight for whatever they believed in as well. So do you think that was the right thing to do, or should they have left it to just GST?
I think all these rights groups and all these different people with different agenda, they do share the anti-GST sentiment. So I guess they come there, show their support on being anti-GST, but at the same time they also have their own cause to fight.
Yeah, exactly. In the end, they're all fighting for the country anyway, although in different ways. That's for different causes.
But the interesting part is because all of these rights groups were there, it is interesting to know all these different groups of people. Like, it shows how diverse we are, even in Peninsula and Sabah Sarawak, because a lot of these issues that they carried, some of it we never even read it in the newspaper.
Yeah,
but they carry it forward. For example, there's this Kelantanese group that call for the oil royalty for Kelantan. I mean, how many times we see in the paper for any rights group fighting for those kind of causes? It's always between politicians. So it's a refreshing civil society movement, I think.
Okay, let's move on to the next news, which is reported by the Online Citizen on the 1st of May. So it seems that foreigners make up to 50.5% of total workforce in Singapore. So in the article, jobless rate inches up amid tight labour market, it is stated that the unemployment rate for Singapore citizens was 3% last quarter, up from 2.8%, while that for residents of Singapore, permanent residents and all, was 2.9%, up from 2.7%. According to the Ministry of Manpower Employment Situation First Quarter 2014 report, there were 3,500,000 people in employment as of March 2014.
It's interesting to know that foreigners make up 50% almost of total Singapore's workforce. It shows that Singapore's demographic is changing a lot, but the mentality of the people there has not keeping up with the new demographic or the new immigrants that is settling down in Singapore.
I think they're probably becoming more like Malaysia, where the foreign workers have actually become like the backbone to our economy, and we're kind of dependent on them now.
In fact, the situation in Singapore is similar to us prior to independence, because when the new Labour came in, by the British, as in the Chinese and the Indian immigrant. It took us quite some time to make all these new immigrants as part of the new Malaysian, the Tanah Melayu, or the original Malay lands population. So I guess in this sense, Singapore is also facing this kind of evolution of demographic, from just purely Singaporean to the coming of new immigrants.
But this is actually the first time it has happened in Singapore, according to the research. First time in Singapore history, according to S.Y. Lee and Leong Zihian. And it seems that they're also having a rally on the 3rd of May, which is this Saturday, to protest for the rights of Singaporeans.
I see. I thought they had a rally yesterday together with us.
Oh, yeah?
I saw a Facebook post show the difference between the Singapore rally and also the Malaysia's rally at Dataran Merdeka. The Singapore's one would be at the Hong Lim Park, but the number of people attending the rally is so different.
Okay,
It's
was
like
it much
just a few, or less than a few hundred.
Okay. Do you know what that rally was about?
It's about the May Day rally as well.
Oh,
the Labor Day rally.
So I'll let you do the next news because this is your favorite topic.
Okay, it's being reported by CNN that Brunei will be adopting the Sharia law, even though amid international outcry. So it seems that Brunei will be the first East Asia country to adopt the Sharia law, despite widespread condemnation from international human rights groups. And Islamic criminal law set to include punishments such as flogging, dismemberment of, as in amputation of a hand, and death by stoning for crimes such as rapes, adultery, and sodomy. So the religious law will also operate alongside the existing civil penal code. In response to the new set of law, human rights groups and Amnesty International said that it will take the country back to the dark ages, and I couldn't agree more.
Right. And I think this new Islamic code will apply to both Muslims and non-Muslims, right?
That's the interesting part about Brunei's Islamic law.
So it also applies to all the Christians and Buddhists who are over there. And about 70% of the people in Brunei are Malay Muslims, while the rest are all Chinese or other ethnic descent.
I mean, it goes down to the people there. Is it fully being public consulted by the people, or it's just what the authority wants? Because they are applying to non-Muslims as well, it seems like.
Do you think that's fair?
I think it's a law that is not fair even to both Muslim and non-Muslim.
That's right. And it's a very severe law, stoning, death by stoning. That's a very, very torturous way of dying, and I think it violates your rights as a human. And
yeah, that's true, totally true.
So it seems that the Sultan said that the government does not expect anyone to accept and agree with it. He just wants everyone to respect the nation the same way that it also respects them. And I think that's kind of hard to do in this case.
Yeah, because it's totally against the idea of human rights, which is respecting human dignity and also respecting democracy. Like, it's just being implemented with the whims of the authorities without even consultation of the public.
And like what you said to me the other day, when a punishment is given, they should always look into the socio-economic background and not just try to instill fear in people, because that's not the right way to do it.
And there's a proven studies that shows that Sharia law do not reduce crime at all. It is still the same. I mean, the rate of the crime will still remain the same as countries who do not implement Sharia law. Because what changed a country is the whole system, is not just the law. So the law is just, the law should be as humane as possible, because the idea is to make people learn from their mistake rather than to punish them for what they had done just like that. It has to have a bigger sort of reason for punishment.
Do you think Brunei is going to become like North Korea?
I think what our fear is it will have a domino effect, as in like when Brunei adopts the Sharia law, other countries within Southeast Asia would continue as well, because as we may know, a lot of the Muslim population centered in Malaysia and Indonesia.
Yeah, I think Malaysia is considering about adopting the Sharia law as well, but only in Kelantan, I think, not really in the whole country.
Yeah, in fact, one of the agenda that will bring what that was being brought forth is supporting hudud law during the anti-GST rally, which is interesting.
So I think I read it somewhere, I can't remember where, but it says that for anyone who commit the crime, so they have to get their, let's say they steal something, they have to get their arms amputated, and it seems that they are getting a doctor to do that, to properly amputate the arm.
And it's a huge debate among the medical population, because
it goes against the doctor's ethics as well. You cannot just amputate someone's arm when they're in perfect condition.
I mean, your job is to cure diseases, to help people to get better, not to implement Sharia law, isn't it?
Yeah. So the next news will be about Philippines, reported by Reuters. Philippines says that U.S. is obligated to help in case of attack. The United States has a treaty obligation to help the Philippines in case of an attack on its territory or armed forces in the South China Sea, the Philippine Foreign Minister said on Wednesday. The United States and the Philippines on Monday signed a 10-year enhanced defense cooperation agreement allowing U.S. forces wider access to Philippine bases and to position ships, aircraft, equipment, and troops for maritime security.
So it seems like the Philippine government is really trying to do its best to protect its shores from the Chinese attack, especially on the South China Sea. I think that's one of the reasons it's seeking U.S. help in the territorial dispute.
But do you think China is actually intimidated by U.S.?
I think so, because there are only two major superpower right now, the Chinese and also the Americans. But when it comes to Southeast Asia, balancing these two superpowers is definitely the most important agenda, not just for the Philippines, but I think for the rest of Southeast Asia.
But I think Philippines is going to be just another country with, the American troops and the army base growing there. I think it's probably a hidden agenda by the United States.
Obviously, it will have their own. The U.S. will have their own agenda to seek control in Southeast Asia,
because they've already have control in the Middle East with Afghanistan, Iraq, and all that. So I think they are trying to bring over that to Asia now, and they're probably doing it through the Philippines.
That's true. Although in their defense, the Filipino authorities say that under the Mutual Defense Treaty, the U.S. will come to assist the Philippines if their metropolitan territory is being attacked, or if their armed forces are being attacked in the Pacific area. In this, I think it referred to China, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
And in 1999, a diplomatic letter, the U.S. affirmed that the South China Sea is considered as part of the Pacific area. So,
but China is actually claiming more and more of the South China Sea. If you remember, we also reported a news on that, I think, a few weeks back.
Yeah.
How, like last month, I think the Chinese Coast Guard blocked 2 Filipinos from delivering food and water to their soldiers aboard because they were thought to be entering the Chinese territory.
I think having the U.S. coming to the shores of Philippines might not be the best move, but it's the only move right now that they can think of. Although alternatively, I think strengthening ASEAN the Association of Southeast Asian Nations would be a better alternative, because you do not want foreign forces to protect you. It would be better for you to protect yourself as a regional bloc, isn't it?
Yeah. And to bring America in, everyone knows, how that ends up.
That's true.
So moving on to the next news, which is reported by BBC News Asia. Vietnam border shootout raises Uyghur questions. Last weekend, Thai authorities said they had arrested a group of 16 suspected illegal immigrants thought to be Uyghurs from Xinjiang, China. The arrest came days after a violent incident on the border between Vietnam and China where 7 people died. These 16 Chinese nationals involved in this clash were also believed to be Uyghurs.
And the event showed that Southeast Asia may have become a transit hub for Uyghurs to leave China. And on the 18th of April, it was unexpected that a group of 16 Chinese nationals, 10 men, 4 women, and 2 small children has been brought to Bak Pong Sing the morning after being detained by the illegal entering Vietnam. And the Quai Ninh border guard said that while waiting to be transferred back to China, some of these men began attacking the guards. The Uyghur is actually those who are Muslims living in the area of Xinjiang, which is the northwestern part of China. And they have long been suppressed by the Chinese government for a number of reasons, and one of it is the religion and also territory. A lot of them, they don't have that much rights. I mean, in China, you don't really have that many rights, but they have even lesser rights as a citizen. So in this case, I think they want to seek for a better nation. And yeah, it's true that Southeast Asia is a transit for a number of immigrants to leave this country and to go to other countries such as in Australia and other developed countries.
So I think it's actually possible that Vietnam and China reached a deal on how to handle this case. But some human rights groups think that it's not appropriate to Vietnam's laws and international legal practices. They should have handled the case better.
That's true. They should have handled it better. And the next one is also in Myanmar. It's reported by The Nation. Vietnam screams for halt to Mekong dams as Delta sits up. So the story is Vietnamese Prime Minister Nguyen Thanh Dung tried to maintain cordial diplomatic relations with his fellow Mekong River Commission Council and ASEAN members, while at the same time ratcheting up pressure for a halt to constructions of the giant US $3.8 billion, or in their currency is 122.9 billion. So it's a hydropower project, and a smaller but equally controversial one is the Dongshan Dam, and the first barrier of the mainstream of the lower Mekong. So these people are protesting against the Mekong dams.
Yeah, I think this is a very, very sad story, because if they go ahead with building these dams, it affects the livelihoods of nearly 20 million of their citizens living in the Mekong River Delta, and also affects 27% of Vietnam's GDP, 90% of their rice exports, 60% of their seafood exports. So I think the Prime Minister is actually in a dilemma here, where he's torn between caring for his people and also maintaining the diplomatic relations he has with all these corporations that's actually building the dam.
I see. But the main reason for building the dam is to create electricity or generating electricity. But which one is more important, food or security or electricity? And electricity can be generated in various other forms, especially with the buzz over renewable energy. I think the government is having a misplaced priority in this sense. Is trying to jeopardize the livelihood of the people there, and also the food security of Vietnam, in order for them to get a bit more money.
I think it also impacts the environment very badly, and we need to have some sort of interference from some ecological NGOs
That's
also.
true. I mean, in this sense, they should probably, try to explore more renewable energy, such as the solar panel.
Right.
And there's so many other ventures that they could have done.
And I think as a prime minister, the first thing you do is you care for your people and not your diplomatic relations with all these multi-million corporations.
I mean, on its background, that Vietnam is also eager to move forward economically, and a lot of its economic reforms is geared towards trying to catch up with the rest of the Southeast Asian nations. So in this case, probably is catching up too fast that it's forgot that it has to care for the livelihood of the people, and it claims itself as being a socialist nation, so it has to live up to its name or ideology.
So the next news is by The National. Myanmar Muslims' plight shows need for global action. Basic human rights of the Rohingya continue to be violated. The UN agencies have only been able to wring their hands and issue condemnation, but have failed to prevent the abuse. So I think this is another story that really touched my heart while analyzing, because no one is really doing anything about it, and these people, they continue to be oppressed. They're in so much pain, so much torture.
In fact, it's considered a genocide. I mean, because a lot of people are being
Right.
killed in a systematic way by the state authority, and also by people who have hatred towards their race and religion.
So do you think that this has to do with the way Islam is projected to the world in the media?
I think it's beyond just Islam. They see them as someone who is not part of their nationality. They call
Okay.
them, in fact, some of those racist people call them Bengalis instead of consider them as the Rohingya who have been
Okay.
living in the Arakan territories for very long time. So in this case, it is similar to how the Germans treated the Jews during the World War II. So I think the international authorities should do something about it.
Yeah, maybe like an awareness campaign or something to get the world together and do something about this crime. Well, maybe not only in Myanmar, but against minorities in all countries, because every country has a certain number of people who are being oppressed, who are being the marginalized community.
In fact, we don't have to go that far. I mean, we have ASEAN. And I think ASEAN has been pretty quiet about this, and it doesn't reflect the human rights aspect of ASEAN, which it calls for a people-centered ASEAN.
Okay, we'll move on to our final news for today, which is reported by BBC News Asia. Thailand to hold fresh elections on 20th of July. So if you remember the last time we read about these protesters who set up a blockade at the election areas and all.
Still remember that.
So it seems that Thailand has announced that it will hold a fresh election after the Constitutional Court invalidated its 2nd February poll last month. The new polls will be conducted on 20th of July in an agreement reached between the Election Commission, the Prime Minister, officials said. So their current Prime Minister, Yingluck Shinawatra, called the snap election in February amid major anti-government protest in Bangkok. So her ruling party was expected to win, but the opposition boycotted the polls. And also the protesters disrupted the voting last month. So the court declared the election unconstitutional because it did not take place on the same day across the country.
I see. And Miss Singlak is also facing judgment in the next few years on 2 legal cases, which can result in a 5-year ban from political office. It seems like there's a lot of politicking going on in Thailand, I would say.
Yeah. And it's also not clear whether the anti-government protesters will attempt to sabotage these elections as well, like they did the last one, and whether the main opposition Democrat Party will even take part.
It's left to be said, I guess.
Just an additional information, the Thailand's political system has actually been paralyzed since anti-government protesters began in Bangkok since November 2013. So that was last year. So until now, they're actually unable to have a proper election due to all these protesters, all these demonstrations, the blockades.
I think from our discussion a few days ago, the Thai's politics has become more and more partisan. As in, like, are you from that camp or are you from this camp?
The red shirt, the blue shirt.
Yeah, and I mean, it's very unhealthy in a way because the discussion is no longer centered upon issues or policies, but it's centered upon who do you support.
Right.
And it's definitely not going to get the nation forward. It will only divide the nation.
And apparently you cannot remain neutral. You have to pick a side whether you like it or not. So if you're not with me, you're against me. And that's how it works in Thailand now, which is really sad.
It is sad, and we hope that the Thai people could soon move beyond just partisan politics.
I hope they get their elections right. I hope everything goes well for them, and so they can move on to the next agenda. Okay, I think that's all we have for the news today.
Thanks, Gowri.
Yeah, thanks, Arlene. We'll get back to our listeners in a bit.